Hey everybody, hope you're having a great day. It is Chief Meteorologist Jennifer Valdez. I'm so glad you're joining me for today's World of Weather. And it's appropriate because today we are talking about assessing damage after a storm and what the National Weather Service does, what they use, and the tools they use in order to determine if a tornado touched down, if it was straight line winds, if it was a microburst, because a lot of times people instinctively think tornado, and a lot of times it is not a tornado. It is another weather event that caused the damage. On top of that, even after they assess, yes, it was a tornado, they have to determine how strong the tornado was. When did it touch down? How long was it on the ground? How wide was the path? How long was the path? How many areas did it affect? And how strongly did it affect them? How strong were the winds inside the tornado? So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. This typically happens the day after the severe weather event. The National Weather Service determines what area they're going to go to. They go in teams. They use what they call a damage assessment toolkit. And they go out in the field and they physically look at what they see. But on top of that, they overlay that information with radar scans and radar and satellite images from the day before. So they can pinpoint when that storm touched down, what it looked like on radar, how what it looked like on radar correlates to what it looks like on the ground, and then they assess the damage from there on out. So today's lesson is on damage assessment from the National Weather Service. It is today's World of Weather, and it is appropriate because we could see some severe storms this afternoon. We did have several severe thunderstorm warnings yesterday across the North Georgia mountains. Those exact same areas could get hit again. Although that tornado threat is very low today, we do have that threat of strong damaging winds, possibly large hail up to as big as golf balls, and we could see frequent lightning as well. So we're gonna flip this camera around. Today's World of Weather lesson. And again, it is the National Weather Service assessment, how they determine what touchdown, what kind of tools they use. And we call these damage surveys. So again, as I said, they go after a storm, they determine the type of storm. So that's part of the survey. Was it a tornado? Was it a severe thunderstorm? Was it straight line winds? And they look at the buildings, the debris, and the trees. They look at what kind of buildings were damaged, what kind of trees were damaged. Was it a pine tree or an oak tree? What direction did the trees fall? Are they all falling in the same direction? Are the bigger trees standing, but the smaller trees are down? So, how strong, how old, how big was the tree that did come down? And then once they determine what kind of event it was, if it was a tornado, that's when they then give it its rating and determine how strong it was. This is what it looks like, the damage toolkit. Again, it's called a damage assessment toolkit, and there's all kinds of things inside it. There's measuring tools, as you see on the left side. They measure the length of the possible tornado or the length of the damage, the width of the damage, how long it was on the ground. They use an atlas and a map very closely. They use cameras. They take lots of notes, and there's a lot of measuring going on, and that's the part they do on the ground. But then they look at what the radar looked like at the time of the storm, and that helps put all the puzzle pieces together to determine what touched down and what caused the damage. Once they go to the ground, they issue what's called a preliminary damage report, and this is what they are preliminarily saying the damage to be. In that report, they say where the tornado or the severe weather event took place, so which counties were impacted, what date it happened. They put the time that the event started. Then if it is a tornado, they give it an EF rating. It can be an EF0 is the weakest tornado. It can go up to an EF5 tornado is the strongest. Then they determine the peak winds. So the strongest the winds were at any given point within that storm. They determine the path length, so how long the tornado was on the ground. They also determine how wide the tornado was, because tornadoes come in all shapes and sizes, not only in all strengths, and not only are they on the ground for different periods of time, but also they are different widths. Some of them are a lot wider than others. And then they assess how many people were injured, or unfortunately, how many people died within that particular tornado. And they have to go through and do it for every single area that had damage. So this is a picture of what tornado damage looks like. This is what would send the National Weather Service out. And again, they look at the buildings themselves. Was it a mobile home, which is a little weaker? Is it a brick structure, which is stronger? What kind of home was damaged? Was it just the roof? Was it just the siding? Was it just the shed, or was it the entire house? So in this particular picture, you would see that the damage is extensive. You can see it impacted more than just one house. And you can see it was obviously a very strong system that touched down. And you have to not only assess the amount of damage and the strength of damage, but you also have to assess what the damage looks like. For example, this is textbook what tornado damage looks like. And you're looking at the rotation. Notice how at the top there, the trees are moving from west to east. They fell down from west to east. Then the trees fell in the other direction. They fell from north to south. Then the trees on the bottom there went in a completely different direction. So that shows you the rotation. If the winds are all going in the same direction, that is more indicative of straight line winds. But when you see the trees down in different directions like that, where they form a circle, that is textbook that it was a tornado and not straight line winds that caused the damage. But again, the National Weather Service has to go out to assess all of it because they have to determine what caused it, how strong it was, and when it happened. Now, on the other hand, this is what trees look like when they come down from straight line winds. Notice the winds come down from a source here, and then they all blow in that same direction. So straight line winds, you see the trees normally falling in that same direction. Now, there's also microbursts that we see. We did have a lesson on microbursts. If you missed it, definitely a lesson you want to go back and watch. You can do that on the CBS 46 streaming app, or you can do it on our CBS 46 Facebook page or our website. I think probably on our app or our website would be the easiest way to find it. But a microburst is when you get this big burst of energy coming down, and then the winds fan out from the source. So the winds fly down with an incredible amount of strength and then fan out. So notice with a microburst how it almost looks like an arrow. You've got those trees lying from in a northeasterly direction and a southeasterly direction coming down from those straight line winds from a microburst. So that's what a microburst looks like. So there's a lot of things you have to assess. Again, how long was the damage? How long was it on the ground? How strong was it? What was injured? And that is today's trivia question. How does a tornado get a rating? Is it before the storm? Is it from the radar? Is it during the storm or after the storm? And the answer is after the storm. Again, the National Weather Service, after the storm, that's when they assess all the damage. They look at what fell, how strong it was that fell. Again, was it a big tree? Was it a small tree? Was it a lot of big trees or a lot of small trees? Was it dead trees or older trees or newer trees? What kind of building was damaged? So they go after the storm and they use their eyes. They use a lot of measuring devices like measuring tapes. They use the little wheels that measure distance as well. And then once they see it visually with their eyes, they go back and they have it on a map and they take pictures and they look at the radar from the day before. So they go back in time, they look at the radar, exactly where the damage occurred, and they look at when it happened. That helps them determine the time. They can also look at the thunderstorm itself and see if there's rotation in the thunderstorm, if it looked like a microburst or straight line winds, depending on the storm and how it looked on radar. So next time we have severe weather, which this afternoon we could see some severe weather, if we do have some damage, the National Weather Service will go out tomorrow and they're going to assess the damage. So this is exactly what they will be doing. They're going to the location where we had damage. They're looking at what caused the damage. They're looking at what kind of damage and what was affected. And then they determine what caused it, how strong it was, how long it was on the ground, how wide it was, and exactly what time it touched down. So now when I give my weather reports, hopefully you'll understand a little bit more about National Weather Service damage assessments. Again, they happen after the storm, and that is why sometimes it takes several days to determine if it was an actual tornado that touched down and exactly how strong that tornado was. Remember in April, we had that big tornado outbreak, more than 20 tornadoes in one day across Georgia. And it took a couple days for all those numbers to come out because it is a lot of work. It takes a lot of people, a lot of time, a lot of science, a lot of research to come up with the strength of the tornado or the damage or the storm and when and how it happened and how long it was on the ground. Hopefully we don't see any of that this afternoon, but certainly there is that risk of strong thunderstorms and damage. And if there is any confirmed damage, the Weather Service will go out to assess that damage, especially if they believe it to be a tornado. I hope you'll join me tomorrow, same time at 1:15 for the World of Weather. We will be talking about sunsets and what causes different sunsets, how they form and what they look like. Until then, everyone stay safe. Stay with CBS 46. I'll be in the studio with Ella Dorsey. We will give you the very latest on those storms as they move in this afternoon, as we always do. Everyone stay safe, be happy, have a great afternoon. I'll see you later on CBS 46, and then I'll see you tomorrow at 1:15 for the World of Weather.